Hey YouTube, I'm back again with another movie review. But before we get into it, I need you all to like, comment, share the video, and subscribe to my channel. I have more book reviews and movie reviews coming soon, but I'm going to be telling different types of stories on the Dante Show Network. So y'all go make sure y'all check out Dante and check out his content. So, okay, now warning, this is an extreme spoiler alert. I'm breaking down at least 80 to 85% of the movie. Okay, so let's get to it. This movie review is about a short film called Strange Things About the Johnsons. And they made a movie about it in 2011. It was written and produced by Ari Arister. So the father is a successful writer named Sidney Johnson. The mother name is Joan Johnson, and she thrives to be the perfect housewife. And their son name is Isaiah. And later on in life, he marries a woman named Marianne. So, like I said, this is a short film, and it's based on an African American family that has a strange secret. So the movie starts off is when Isaiah was 12. He was in his bed choking his chicken to a picture that he was looking at. Then his father walks in. So the son was like, I'm in here cleaning up. And the father hurries up and leaves back out the door. And he was on the other side of the door. And he was saying, like, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. Can I come in? It was my fault for not knocking. So the son was like, yeah, come in. So while he was still on his bed, the dad came in there, and they started talking about what Isaiah was doing. Um, he let his son know that he was wrong for not knocking on his door and just barging in like that. Then he told him, like, it's natural to do that. So they had a conversation about it and everything was fine. Then the dad was about to leave his son alone. He was about to leave back out the door. Before his dad walked out the door, Isaiah said, Dad, I love you. And then the father said, I love you too. So when the dad left out, the son opened up his hand, and it was a picture of his dad with his shirt off. So that's what he was choking his chicken to. So one day the Johnsons went for a photo shoot for a family picture. And so Sydney and Joan were standing up and they looked really happy. But Isaiah was still sitting in a chair, and he sat in front of Joan. And the cameraman told her to put her hand on her son's shoulders. But he would not look at the camera. Isaiah kept looking up at his dad, smiling, and Joan had to keep turning his head towards the camera. Okay, so the next scene is 14 years later. Isaiah just got married to a woman named Marianne, and the wedding reception was at the Johnson's house. The house was really nice. It was huge, and people were there enjoying themselves, and there was a cameraman there taking pictures. So the cameraman took a family picture of the bride and groom with their parents. Isaiah had his wife on his right side and his dad on his left side. Everybody looked happy except for Sydney. He looked so miserable. So Isaiah put his right hand on his wife's shoulder. Then he took his left hand and slid it down to squeeze his dad's butt. And Sydney just flinched and he looked like he wanted to cry. So after they took the pictures, Joan was walking around, just hosting a party and talking to people. And the people was asking her, like, where's Isaiah at? So she was like, I don't know. Let me go find him. So Joan walked to the side of the house and she heard a noise coming from the patio. So she walked over there. Now, the patio was enclosed by a tall wooden gate, and the wooden gate had a peephole in it. So when she looked inside of the peephole, she saw her husband standing in one spot, looking scared, while Isaiah was ripping his clothes off. Then he got on his knees and started undoing his dad's pants, about to give him some fellatio. And Sydney just stood there looking miserable and teary-eyed. So when Joan saw this, she was in shock and she started crying. Then she turned around, regained her composure, wiped her tears away, straightened up her clothes, smiled, and then went back to host the wedding reception. Okay, so one night, Sydney, his wife, and his parents were at the house about to have dinner. So Joan told Isaiah, "Go get your father because dinner is ready." But Sydney was upstairs on the computer writing a memoir called The Cocoon Man, Confessions by Sidney Johnson. It was about him being sexually abused by his son. When Sydney heard Isaiah coming up the steps, he got scared and exited off the screen so his son wouldn't see what he was working on. And when Isaiah got up there, he told his father, "It's time for dinner." So the dad went downstairs and they all had dinner. And Joan was talking to her husband and she started like rubbing his hand. Then Sydney smiled at her. Like, this the only time he really looked happy. When Isaiah saw this, he looked jealous and then he started rubbing his foot along his dad's leg under the table. Okay, so time goes along again. And Sydney is finally done with his story. He printed it out, then he named it The Cocoon Man, Confessions by Sidney Johnson. So while Joan was in the shower, she was in the shower that's connected to their room. He put the story under her pillow with a note attached that said, "Please forgive me, Joan." Then he left out the room. I think he was about to just leave out the house because he had on his house jacket and a hat. And I don't think he realized that his son was there. So when his son came in the hallway, he hurried up and took his hat off. Isaiah was saying something like, "I forgot this bathroom doesn't work. I'm going to use the bathroom that's in your room." And Sydney said, "Your mother's in there." And Isaiah said, "So I can wait till she's done." So he walked in the room and left his dad in the hallway looking terrified. In the next scene, the dad is in the room, sitting in the chair looking crazy. And then Isaiah walked in and pulled up a chair so he could sit down. Before he sat down, he threw his dad's memoir down and was like, "I expected more from you." And the dad said he got scared, and the dad was like, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I wrote." So Isaiah said a few words to him, and he said, "I'm burning this. But if I see another copy of this around, it's going to be more than a slap on the wrist for you." Then the dad went and deleted the copy of The Cocoon Man that he had on his computer. So time goes by and they had a New Year's Eve party at the Johnson's house. When it was time to leave, Isaiah purposely broke the glass on the floor and told his wife that he was going to stick around and clean up. So Sydney was taking a bath, relaxing, with his headphones on, just listening to like a self-help tape. Isaiah was on the other side of the door, like trying to get in. So he started jiggling the handle. Now, mind you, this is the son. He's jiggling the handle, and he was like, "You know how I feel about locked doors." And the dad didn't even open the door because he didn't hear it at first. And then when Isaiah started banging, that's when he took off his headphones. So Isaiah started throwing his body into the door or whatever, and he broke through it. And then when he broke through it, his dad started screaming. Like, you can hear him screaming, "Stop," and some other stuff, but he was screaming at the top of his lungs. So Joan was in the other room watching TV while her husband was getting graped. And she heard him saying stop. So she just casually turned the TV up and kept watching. She didn't do anything. She just kept watching TV. So the next scene is Sydney's hand coming from out of the tub. But the way it was positioned, you could tell that he was on his stomach. Then Isaiah got out the tub, pulled up his pants, and before he left, he said, "Now put that in your book." When Sydney went to bed that night, he was holding his covers up to his neck or whatever, looking terrified. And Joan's back was to him. So he turned his head, and he was just looking at her hair in the back of her neck. And he was just staring. I don't know if he wanted to like wake her up and tell her what was going on, or maybe thinking in his head like, "I know she heard that," but maybe he thought she was asleep, but she was wide awake. She just didn't say anything to him. So the next morning, Sydney picked up the extra copy of The Cocoon Man and he started to sneak out of the door, but his son was waiting downstairs for him. When he saw his dad trying to leave out the door, he confronted him and was saying like, "You act like I'm an abusive monster and you're innocent. It takes two to tango and you started this." But he was also saying the dad didn't put it in the book that he had started it. Then Isaiah was yelling at him, trying to justify why they should continue to have sex. So Sidney started crying, then he ran out the door. And while he was running across the street, he didn't even see a van coming. And the van just hit him and instantly killed him. While he was laying on the ground, Isaiah was on top of him and screaming and crying. And then Joan came outside screaming, and she wanted to go hold her husband. So Isaiah screamed at her. He was like, "Don't touch him. Call an effing ambulance." So after that, Sidney died. After he died, they had the funeral and everything. And then Isaiah went to the house. And he had a picture of his father up. So Isaiah put on that exact same outfit that his dad had on in the picture. And Joan walked up and kind of scared him. And he was like, "Well, how long were you standing there?" Joan ignored him and just started asking him questions. So she said, "Why was your father crying after he drove you home from prom night?" "He locked himself in the bathroom all night and cried." So Isaiah was like, "That's 10 years ago. How am I supposed to remember what happened?" But he knew what she was getting to. He knew that she caught on. He was like, "Yeah, that's 10 years ago." Then she said, "Is that when it started?" And then he said something like, "You don't know what you're talking about." So they got into a slight little argument, and she slapped him. Then he told her, like, "Don't do that again," or something, and she slapped him again. Then he slapped her back. And then he looked at her and said, "I loved him better than you ever did." And they started fighting. So he knocked her into the table, and then she picked up a letter opener from off the table and stabbed him with it. She stabbed him somewhere in the face with it. So he grabbed her, and then he got her on the floor in front of the fireplace, and the fire was burning. He was trying to put her head inside of the fireplace. So she just looking around, trying her best not to get, put in this fireplace. Then she reached to the left and pulled out a fire poker, and she stuck him in the eye with it. And then after that, she just started beating him, and she beat him to death with the fire poker. Once Isaiah was dead, she started crying. She threw the last copy of The Cocoon Man in the fireplace, and then the movie ends. Okay, so my opinion. I'm not going to rate this movie. I have a reason for that. But this is one of those movies that you're not supposed to find funny, but you just do. Like, it was wrong that he did that to his dad. But Sidney created a monster. And the mom, I don't know what to think about the mom, because I thought she was real timid and scary until she killed her son. And then at the end of the movie, you heard Isaiah talk about how his dad is the one who started that. So now I'm thinking maybe she didn't care about what was going on with her husband, because after the wedding, she probably put together the pieces like, okay, so he's been touching on him for this long, and now the son is just acting crazy with him and hurting that man, and she probably was like, that's what he get. But it was strange for her not to say anything about it. This movie was disturbing, but it was very creative. So it's different. Y'all just check it out. And check out Ari Aster's other films also. Also, don't forget to like, comment, share this video, and subscribe to my channel.